Welcome back to the Short Game Podcast. It is Thursday, March 5th. I want to talk about the most annoying habit I see in business today. I cannot stand people who complain when things get hard. Everyone wants the freedom and the money of running their own company. But the second a supplier misses a deadline or a client yells at them, they completely fold. They point fingers, they play the victim, and they quit. That is what a spectator does. An operator knows that the difficulty is the entire point. Today we are reading the ultimate playbook for handling chaos. The obstacle is the way, by Ryan Holiday. I'm Drew. I run NexYear. My entire business is built on executing high-stakes logistics. It is a total nightmare of broken timelines and damaged goods. And I love it, because if it were easy, every lazy kid with a laptop would be doing it. The obstacle is the moat that keeps the clowns out. Let's get into it.
What's your name?
My name is Tom Shelby.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
King Ragnar. That is my name.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
I'm Batman.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
My name is Asax Schrader.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Antonio Montana.
My name is Patrick Bateman.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus.
I have to laugh every time I open up social media these days. It is absolutely wild to see how many people out there think that entrepreneurship is just about posting aesthetic photos and updating a LinkedIn title to say founder. You see these 20-somethings posing in coffee shops, talking about the grind, completely obsessed with the tycoon lifestyle. They want the rewards, they want the money, and they want the status, but they have absolutely no idea what it actually takes to get there. Because the minute they face actual friction, the minute something goes wrong, they completely fold. They are what I call spectators. Spectators love the idea of business, but they inherently hate the reality of it. The second a vendor messes up a custom order or a client gets angry, they panic, they point fingers, and they cry about how unfair it all is. They complain that business is hard, that the market is saturated, or that people are too demanding. That is the ultimate loser mentality. It exposes exactly who they are and why they are never going to make it. The operator, on the other hand, does not panic. The operator just fixes the problem. The operator understands that chaos and difficulty are not actually problems at all. Chaos is a filter. Difficulty is a filter. These things exist to violently remove your weak competition from the board. When a supply chain breaks, the spectator quits, but the operator handles his business and builds a massive moat. This brings us directly to Theme Week here on the podcast, which is the Leverage Week. We are talking about psychology, focus, and those unfair advantages that operators use to absolutely dominate their industries. And there is no better manual for this exact mindset than episode 19's focus, The Obstacle is the Way, by Ryan Holiday. This book is essentially a user's manual for life and business, based on the ancient philosophy of Stoicism. It all traces back to a guy named Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of the Roman Empire and literally the most powerful man in the world. Nearly 2,000 years ago, he sat down in his tent on the front lines of a war and wrote a very simple thought to himself. He wrote that our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions. He wrote that the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. And then he dropped the ultimate maxim, stating that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That is the entire core angle of this book and of this episode. The obstacle is not blocking your path, because the obstacle is the actual path. Holiday breaks this Stoic framework down into 3 critical interconnected disciplines. Those 3 disciplines are perception, action, and the will. Let us start by breaking down the discipline of perception, which is all about how you see and understand what occurs around you. Perception is how you decide what those events are actually going to mean to your life. Too often, people react emotionally, they get despondent, and they completely lose their perspective when something goes wrong. But you have to realize that there is no good or bad without us. There is only perception. To one person, a situation is a total disaster, but to another person, that exact same situation is a massive opportunity. Think about John D. Rockefeller, back in the Panic of 1857. This was a massive national financial crisis, the greatest market depression in history, up to that point. Rockefeller could have panicked, he could have pulled out of the market, and he could have quit finance altogether. Instead, he kept his head completely clear, while everyone else was losing theirs. He chose to look at the economic upheaval as a rare opportunity to learn and to observe. He saw the weaknesses in the economy that everyone else took for granted. He trained himself to see the opportunity inside the obstacle, and he realized that the chaos was just a chance to eliminate his greedy, weak-hearted competitors. That is what proper perception does for you. It allows you to strip away your panic, your fear, and your ego, and objectively look at the problem. You have to alter your perspective so that every disaster just looks like a chance to eliminate a competitor who cannot handle the heat. General Dwight D. Eisenhower did this exactly during World War II when the Allies were facing the terrifying German blitzkrieg. His generals were absolutely terrified of this overwhelming force bearing down on them. But Eisenhower walked into the conference room and commanded that this situation was to be regarded as an opportunity for them and not a disaster. He saw that the Nazi strategy carried its own destruction within itself, and by letting them push forward, the Allies could surround them. When you shift your perception, you stop seeing problems as problems, and you start seeing them as your greatest advantage. But perceiving the obstacle correctly is only the first step. Once you see the world as it is, for what it is, you must put your hands to work. That brings us to the second discipline, which is the discipline of action. Action is commonplace, but right action is not. Action requires courage, creative application, and absolute persistence. It is not just about moving around and looking busy. It is about strategically dismantling the obstacles in front of you. When people face an obstacle, their worst instinct takes over, and they dally. They say they are overwhelmed, tired, stressed, or outmatched, and they sit around waiting for the obstacle to magically unobstacle itself. But true operators understand that nobody is coming to save them. Look at Amelia Earhart, who wanted to be a great aviator in the 1920s when people thought women were too frail to fly. She was offered a highly offensive proposition to be a mere chaperone on a transatlantic flight, unpaid, while two men got all the money. She could have been offended, but she simply said yes because she knew that once she got started and built momentum, she could make it work. And 5 years later, she became the first woman to fly solo, non-stop, across the Atlantic. The action is the solution, and the cure to our predicaments is to get moving and practice persistence. General Ulysses S. Grant spent months trying to crack the defenses of Vicksburg, trying every conventional military theory and failing. He refused to be rattled, he refused to quit, and he just kept chiseling away at the obstacles until he found a totally new way to win. That is how innovation works in business too. You have to iterate, you have to follow the process, and you have to focus on the task directly in front of you. Failure is just a feature of the process. It is feedback giving you precise instructions on how to improve. But what happens when your actions simply do not work? What happens when the obstacle is truly immovable and you have absolutely no agency over the situation? That is where the third discipline comes in, which is the discipline of the will. Will is your internal power, the one thing you control completely, which can never be affected by the outside world. It is your inner citadel, the fortress inside of you that no external adversity can ever break down. You build this will through anticipation, by thinking negatively and preparing for everything to go wrong. The Stoics called this the premeditation of evils, knowing that if you plan for disaster, you will never be caught off guard when it strikes. Abraham Lincoln is the ultimate example of this unyielding will. He battled crippling depression his entire life, but he used that personal pain and suffering to forge an iron will. His ability to endure his own dark moments is exactly what prepared him to lead a fractured nation through the brutal carnage of the Civil War. He did not give in to hopelessness. He just practiced the art of acquiescence, accepting what he could not change and bearing it with dignity. Consider Thomas Edison, who was 67 years old when his entire research and production campus caught on fire. Green and yellow flames shot up 7 stories high, fueled by strange chemicals, destroying years of priceless records and prototypes. He was only insured for a fraction of the cost, and his entire life's work was literally burning to ash right in front of him. Instead of weeping, Edison told his son to go get his mother because they would never see a fire like this again. He had the unbreakable will to smile at the destruction, knowing he was not too old to make a fresh start. Within 3 weeks, his factory was partially back up, and he turned a spectacular disaster into an even more spectacular recovery. You have to learn to love everything that happens to you, which the Stoics called amor fati. You take the disaster, you smile at it, and you say, I am glad this happened because it is fuel for my fire. So we have perception, action, and will as our ultimate framework for turning trials into triumphs. Okay, but how does this actually play out? How do we take this 2,000-year-old Stoic philosophy and apply it to our reality right now at NexYear? Let us connect the dots and bridge the gap to what we actually do every single day. We have to connect this book directly to our 3 core values. Core value number 1 is what I call the spectator trigger. Like I said earlier, complaining that business is hard is the absolute ultimate loser mentality. Every 20-something wants the tycoon lifestyle when things are going great and the money is flowing in. But the second a vendor messes up a massive custom order, they completely lose their minds. They point fingers, they cry, and they start sending panicked emails about how the sky is falling. When a supplier fails to deliver on a crucial project, the Spectator writes an emotional post on social media about how nobody wants to work anymore. They let their emotions completely override their systems, and they bleed clients because they cannot execute under pressure. The operator does not have time to be emotional because the operator is busy sourcing a backup vendor and salvaging the relationship with the client. The operator looks at that exact same ruined order, recognizes it as a simple obstacle, and just fixes it. We do not waste a single second complaining about what the vendor did wrong because the client does not care about our excuses. We perceive the problem objectively, we take immediate action, and we assert our will to get the job done. This perfectly leads into core value number 2, which is the logistics nightmare. Let me be completely honest with you. High-end B2B logistics for VIPs is a total nightmare. Timelines break constantly, and custom leather gets delayed at the manufacturer for weeks on end. International shipping goes wrong. Massive shipments get held up in customs, and tracking numbers completely disappear. And you know exactly what I say when all of that logistical chaos hits our desk? I say good, because if it were easy, every lazy kid with a laptop and a fake business card would be doing it. The chaos of high-end logistics is the ultimate filter that eliminates the weak competitors who cannot handle the heat. When a high-stakes campaign for a VIP client falls apart, the Spectator runs away, but NexYear steps directly into the fire to handle it. We absolutely love the nightmare because it proves our competence, and it forces us to be sharper than anyone else in the market. Which brings us to core value number 3, which is the moat. The extreme difficulty of this industry is the exact reason NexYear even exists in the first place. We get paid by our clients specifically because reaching a CEO with a premium physical asset is incredibly hard. If it were simple to bypass gatekeepers and deliver a custom asset to a CEO's desk, our clients would just do it themselves. The obstacle is quite literally our entire business model. The extreme difficulty of execution is the massive wall that keeps everyone else out of our territory. It is our moat, and every time a timeline breaks, it reinforces the necessity of our existence. We are the ones who turn the obstacle upside down and create an opening where a door was firmly shut. So, here is your takeaway for this episode, and it is a blunt directive that you need to internalize right now. Stop complaining that your industry is too crowded, too complex, or too incredibly hard. Stop whining about the friction in your business. You need to be deeply grateful that it is hard, because that relentless difficulty is the only thing keeping the clowns out of your space and protecting your profits.